All right. Welcome to the Section 1904 podcast. My name is John Gennaro. Joining me today is nobody. I am all alone. I'm solo. It's been a while since I've done a podcast by myself, but that's what we're going to do because as people that listen to this podcast regularly and listened yesterday are probably aware, Darren Smith is in Florida dealing with some family health issues, and he did want to record something today, or at least record something into his phone and send it in to be a part of this podcast. I basically told him no. I told him to go away. I told him that the podcast can survive one day without him and that he needed to go spend that time with his family, with his feelings, and that we would see him back on the podcast on Monday, and he agreed that that was probably for the best. So D. Smith will not be a part of this show today. If you were lucky enough, as I was, to be listening to Ben and Woods this morning when his segment came on, you heard some of his thoughts there, both about STFC and the Padres. I did find it funny, and I texted him, that the end of that segment was Darren referencing the Bill James quote that we've been referencing on this podcast over and over again for the last couple weeks. And then immediately everyone on the show goes, "We just talked about that yesterday." And then they panic because they're out of time and they need to go to commercial. And so Wood starts saying, "Darren, you're going to be here for another segment, right?" And then Ben says, "Well, I'm not." And they're like, yeah, Ben's going to leave, but Darren's going to stick around, right? And Darren doesn't say anything, and the music's getting louder. And then someone, I think Paul, says, no, Darren's not sticking around for another segment today. And the music's getting louder and louder, and Wood just goes, okay, Ben's leaving, Darren's leaving, we'll be back, bye. And then they went to a commercial that was in pure Spanish, at least if you were listening on the Audacity app. The whole thing was funny because Darren was starting to make a point and got cut off by what we would say in radio, got cut off by the clock. And then there was just chaos ensued after that. And I texted Darren. I was like, that was a good reminder that in radio, sometimes you would start to make a point and then the clock would cut you off. And that's not a problem that we have here on the Section 1904 podcast, which is why some of our conversations can be a little bit deeper, a little bit longer, and all of that. So one in the column of podcasting, although I do enjoy when Darren joins the Ben and Wood shows on Friday, and I'm glad he did make time to do that this week. He sent along some clips that he finds funny. I've listened to them. I also find them funny. He sent them in and said, as far as where he is mentally today, he said laughter is the best medicine, and he wanted to share some of his laughter with the Section 1904 audience, even if he himself could not be here. So we'll get to those in a minute. We'll get to some stadium talk again in a minute. But I want to start with the San Diego Padres, who won their game against the Arizona Diamondbacks last night 4-3. Who split the series with the Arizona Diamondbacks, who welcomed to town the Philadelphia Phillies tonight for a 3-game series heading into the All-Star break. The Phillies are a good team. And I've been saying on this podcast over and over again that when Tatis has been hitting the ball, he's been making good contact. He's got a good control over the strike zone, which is why he's walking a lot. His OBP is really high. It's just those balls that used to jump off his bat and end up either bouncing against the wall or flying over the wall. Felt like they weren't even making him to the outfielders anymore. It felt like he had lost some of his power for whatever reason. It was back last night. And there was a thing in the back of my head, there was a voice in the back of my head going like, maybe this is a one-night thing. Maybe he just got lucky, blah, blah, blah. But that looked like the ball bounced off his bat the way it used to. Come to find out after the game that Fernando Tatis Jr. is in town, and he's been working with Jr. on his swing and his adjustments, and lo and behold, big improvements to the swing. I've noticed this tends to be, even across sports, this tends to be a common occurrence for children of former professional athletes of the same sport. A lot of times when they're struggling, their parent comes in, the person who's probably been their teacher, their guide, their instructor since they were babies, the person who essentially built their swing from nothing. And that can really lead to a turnaround with the Dallas Mavericks. Watching them so many years, it used to be a thing when Tim Hardaway Sr. would be at a game. All of a sudden, Tim Hardaway Jr., a lot of his bad issues would go away and he'd become a much better shooter. With Jr., I think this is a real thing. I think when Fernando Tatis Sr. comes to town, I think he can kind of rediscover the swing that he sometimes doesn't always have. And it was great to see last night. And honestly, the Padres needed all of it. Again, another one-run win. Tatis and Machado both homered. I saw AJ Cassavell tweet last night that it was the first time this year that they had both homered in the same game. I saw Kevin Acee this morning say it was the second time this year that both had homered in a game. I don't know which one is right. I'm not going to look it up. I don't know if it's a big deal. I also saw somewhere that they were both leadoff home runs. So maybe that's what AJ Cassavell said or meant. Maybe I read it too fast. Doesn't matter. The great news is Fernando Tatis Jr. looked a little bit more like the superstar that we want and maybe expect him to be sometimes, and that's great. There was no cool-off for Manny Machado. That was great. The Padres still did a pretty bad job of hitting with runners in scoring position. That just might be a thing for a while. But here are some things that I want to get into. One of which is a thing that aggravated me last night. One of which is my trade ideas that I wrote in my State of the Padres article on section1904.com yesterday. And one of which is Michael King. Let's start with Michael King. Let's stay in the good for right now. There was a story. I mean, everyone's written versions of the stories because Michael King was around the team yesterday and threw a bullpen before the game. I think I saw he threw like 25 pitches. He felt really good. Both him and the Padres said there's no more pain, that the nerve in his shoulder has gone back to acting, I think the word was appropriately. I think what they mean is like normally. He's kind of back to where he was before the injury. And they were talking about it now as if it's just a ramp up, like a spring training where he just has to keep throwing, keep building those muscles, get back to a point where he's throwing, 95 mile an hour fastballs and he can throw 100 pitches without dying and all of that. I guess there's a bobblehead day for him on August 20th. And someone asked him if that would be a good day for him to return. And he scoffed. It was like, no, that would not be a good day to return. I will be back well before then. So this is starting to feel a little bit like he's going to be a part of the rotation in a week or two, maybe coming out of the All-Star break. I mean, we don't know. We don't know how much he needs to build up after, 2 months off with this shoulder thing. But that's outstanding news. And I haven't heard anything negative about Darvish after he started. So the Padres starting rotation starting to come around in ways that AJ Preller probably only dreamed about a month ago, where Nick Pivetta is, still Nick Pivetta, and Yu Darvish showed up and he looked good and supposedly is healthy, and Michael King is supposedly healthy and he looked really good to start the season. If they can straighten out the Dylan Cease thing or maybe turn him into something else, that would be great. Stephen Kolek, I think, is on the AAA squad right now, and Ryan Bergert is currently on the IL, but I consider those guys, along with Matt Waldron, to just be options for that fourth or fifth spot in the rotation for the rest of the season. So the starting rotation is starting to look good, starting to look almost like the Padres don't need to trade for a starting pitcher. Kind of like the bullpen. I know there's been talk about, just build onto that strength, make the bullpen even better. The bullpen looks great. It looks phenomenal. I mean, Robert Suarez has been great, and out of those four guys at the end of games, he might be the weak link. Jeremiah Estrada is really good. He's really consistent. Jason Adam is really good. He's really consistent. Adrian Morejon is finally starting to reach the potential that we heard prospect guys rant and rave about him for years and years and years about how this guy had ace potential. Back when he was thought to be a potential starting pitcher, they said this guy's he's got incredible stuff, incredible makeup. He's got a great pitching potential in front of him. It seems like he's reached some of that. I don't know if they're ever going to stretch him out and try and turn him into a starter again. I don't even know if that's the thing that he wants anymore. But for this season, and especially the last month or two, he's essentially unhittable. I think I saw he's got 14 and a third innings without a run given up. It might have even been without a hit given up. He's just been incredibly dominant. So that's great news. King coming back is great news, just like Darvish coming back was great news. And before we get into my trade ideas, if you were on the Section 1904 Discord last night, specifically in the Padre channel, you probably saw me at a very, very grumpy point in my evening. And that's because I get grumpy when things that are obvious to me are not obvious to the teams. Like this is their whole job to be good at this. I'm just a schlub on the couch. And last night, let's see, I have it in front of me. In the bottom of the 7th inning, Gavin Sheets leads off against someone named Woodford. And he gets a walk. And he goes to first base. The Padres had a 4-3 lead. Same score that the game ended up ending in. But Gavin Sheets walks. So Gavin Sheets, who is slow, is on first base. Xander Bogaerts comes up. Xander Bogaerts is the number 5 hitter in this lineup. 6 hitter in this lineup, I believe. Let's see. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, Xander Bogaerts is the number 5 hitter in this lineup. So coming up after Xander Bogaerts is the 6, 7, 8, 9 part of the lineup that has just been an anchor on this team all year long, because there's that left field hole in there somewhere. There's the catcher hole in there somewhere. There might even be a DH hole in there somewhere. The bottom of the lineup is not going to it's not going to score runs. It's not. It's not going to get guys on base, and it's not going to knock them in. So what does Xander Bogaerts do? For all the money he's getting paid, he bunts. Not only does he bunt, it's a sacrifice bunt. Xander Bogaerts probably is not bunting for a hit anyway, but it's an obvious sacrifice bunt. And he bunts over Gavin Sheets, who then ends up on second base, and Bogaerts is out. Why would you do this? Why? I saw this in real time happening, and I'm like, first of all, bunting with a lead is stupid. Second of all, bunting with a lead with the bottom third of the order coming up. This bottom third of the order coming up is so stupid. So, what happens? The Diamondbacks walk Jackson Merrill. So, Gavin Sheets would have been on second base anyway, I guess. So Gavin Sheets doesn't move. He stays at second because Merrill gets walked. Jose Iglesias comes up. Guy's on first and second. And he does exactly what he's supposed to do. He hits a single, a screaming single through the left side of the infield that reaches the left fielder. And Gavin Sheets, who is slow, does not get paid to be fast. Gavin Sheets runs around third base and then slams on the brakes because he knows there's absolutely no chance that he can score from second on a single. Everyone knows that Gavin Sheets is too slow to score from second on a single. So what is the point of giving up an out before the bottom third of your lineup to put him there? There's no point. Like, in theory, since Jackson Merrill walked and Iglesias hit a single that loaded the bases and did not score Gavin Sheets, that sacrifice bunt from Xander Bogaerts did literally nothing except add an out to the Padres' half of the inning. That's all it did. And then at that point, with Gavin Sheets sitting on third, what does Mike Schilt do? He pinch runs for Gavin Sheets. And I get it. You're like, at that point, as there's one out, maybe I can get a sac fly. And maybe a Bryce Johnson can score from third on a sac fly. You had Gavin Sheets on second base. If you sacrificed to get him there. If you're playing small ball and you know Gavin Sheets is not fast enough to score from third on a sac fly safely, then what you do is you bring in the pinch runner before, like when Gavin Sheets walks and you make the decision that we're going to do a sacrifice bunt, you put Bryce Johnson on first base, or you want to be real sneaky about it, you wait until Gavin Sheets gets sacrificed over to second base, and then you put Bryce Johnson in, who would have scored on the Iglesias hit, and he didn't. What happens then? Jake Cronenworth comes up with the bases loaded and strikes out. No comment. And then Trenton Brooks pinch hits for Martin Maldonado, because Martin Maldonado is not a good enough hitter for this situation. Bases loaded and 2 out, but apparently Trenton Brooks is. I don't get why. And Trenton Brooks grounds out up the middle, inning over, no runs scored, and the Padres did. It was just, there was no thought put into any of the decisions. Like, I'm usually, I think Mike Shildt does a pretty good job as a game manager. He's got a little bit of a quick hook for me. He leans on his bullpen a little bit too much for me. I might be, an old man screaming at clouds about why don't starting pitchers go deeper in games. But this one, every decision lacked context. The Xander Bogaerts bunt, which I guess could have been a Xander Bogaerts decision, it lacked all context. Slow guy on first, bottom third of the order coming up. What are you doing? And then the decision to pinch run Bryce Johnson after Sheets is already sitting on third with 2 outs. What are you doing? And then Trenton Brooks coming in to hit for Martin Maldonado, cold, off the bench. Guy who's hitting, I don't know, what's Trenton Brooks hitting? A buck something? What are you doing? There's no context. There's no forethought. There's no consideration. There's no, hey, if this happens, then I'm going to do this. It's all reactionary in this inning. Just a really, really bad inning of managing for Mike Shildt. Didn't matter. When Tatis and Manny Machado hit home runs and the bullpen's is good, oftentimes it doesn't matter. Randy Vasquez, once again, was terrible and only gave up, I think, 2 runs, which he just does that every time. Let's see. Did he give up 2 or did he give up all 3? 2. 4 1/3. Couldn't get out of the 5th. Only threw 86 pitches, again, with the quick hook. They're really afraid of Randy Vasquez pitching against the order a third time. But 4 1/3, 2 earned runs, 4 walks and 1 strikeout. I don't understand how Randy Vasquez is not just getting torched. I don't know how Randy Vasquez is still in the majors. I don't know how Randy Vasquez has an ERA under 4, but he does. Keep at it, King. All right. Padres win. Tatis hits a home run. Talked about that. Manny hits a home run. Nothing surprising there. I felt really bad yesterday for trashing Manny because, and I said this on the Discord too, like, I'm not in their clubhouse, man. I don't talk to their players. I'm not a reporter. I don't know. Maybe the problem is Tatis. Maybe the problem is Preller. Maybe the problem is the Padres. Maybe the bad vibes surrounding this team have nothing to do with Manny Machado. I certainly wouldn't know if they did or if they didn't. I heard someone the other day, it was on this podcast or another one. I think maybe it was Eric Gomez talking about, people wanting to put the C on Manny Machado's chest. That was my idea. I came up with that idea on Padres Hot Tub back in like 2018, something like that. I was like, hey, this is not an absurd notion in baseball. Like Jason Varitek had the C on his chest, on his Boston Red Sox jersey. Like it's happened before. Why shouldn't Manny Machado have the C on his chest? Give him the C. We made shirts about it. Give Manny the captain's C. I tend to give him a little bit more weight on the vibes around the team for this reason. He was also the guy who did come up with the swag chain. Like, we got to give him credit for that. That was a great idea, and it was fun for a while. But I shouldn't have thrown all the blame on him. It might be his fault, but I just don't know. And that's why I didn't want to say anything, because I don't know. Like, it's sometimes you come up with narratives in your head when you see something enough, and that was a narrative that I came up in my head that I don't know anything about, that I shouldn't say into a microphone. So everything I said about Manny, leading to bad vibes on the team, I take it all back as much as I can. The last thing on the Padres, because not everyone listens every day and not everyone reads everything that I write and I send out there, but I did write a State of the Padres yesterday. I do this occasionally throughout the season. I used to do it on Bandwagon Beach. I did it before the season for Section 1904. I think it was actually before they even finalized the roster. I did it. And I went through the infield, the outfield, catcher, DH, starting pitcher, bullpen, bench, all of that, and just gave my thoughts group by group. This group's doing well, this group's not, here's why, et cetera, et cetera. Two things I wanted to point out. One, I'm going to read my catcher part because this is not the one that I wrote yesterday. This is the one that I wrote before the start of the season. So this was in March. This is what I wrote in March about the Padres catching situation. Right off the bat, I hate this. I despise this. This feels like the old days when sicko Padre fans would fight for who should be the starter between Austin Hedges and Francisco Mejia, except without the potential for either of them to get better. Diaz is 34 years old, and the only thing that made his hitting below average instead of unplayable was that he spent 5 years playing half of his games at Coors Field. Opponents are already circling his spot in the lineup because they're going to use it to get out of jams. Maldonado is a different thing. He might actually be Austin Hedges. I remember Astros fans ripping their hair out trying to get him out of the lineup because he hasn't hit above 200 in a full season since before COVID. And the Astros players and coaches would say that he was the leader of the team and that he had to be out there. I look forward to living through that specific brand of hell again. If I had to guess, I would put money on neither of these guys being the Padres starting catcher by June. I was wrong about that last line. I was right about everything else. And I wanted to clap myself on the shoulder for being right about everything else. Not that everyone else was wrong. I think I just agreed with everyone when I said those things. And then at the end, because my brain went here and because people find these things interesting, I started to think, what are some trades that the Padres could make? And I'm not talking about the Jarren Durans and the, hey, let's get rid of, Ethan Salas or Leo DeVries or both of them and go get this star. The whole AJ Preller, this team's going to show me what we need to do with the trade deadline thing. I looked at it as, okay, with King coming back and Darvish coming back and Tatis playing a little bit better, I don't know that I'm ready to push in all the chips. The vibes are still too bad, I think, to push in all the chips. But I think they've shown me enough to say, don't sell. I mean, you can sell Dylan Cease if you want, but don't sell. Don't sell off Suarez. Don't sell off Arise. Buy. But buy from the bargain bin. Buy from things that will help your team without costing your team a lot in capital. Prospect capital, player capital, whatever. And here are the players I came up with for the Padres to acquire. Player number one is Tyler O'Neill, who's an outfielder for the Baltimore Orioles, who every time he's gotten the chance to play regularly as a full-time starter has hit over 30 home runs in a season. He's having a bad season right now. He's hitting below 200. He's not starting really at all. And part of the reason he's not starting is because the Orioles are just overloaded with young talent. And they have 3 potential superstars on their team who are 27, 24, and 21 years old. Tyler O'Neill is 30 years old, not on their timeline, and he doesn't seem to have a place in their outfield anymore because they've just called up enough young, good outfielders that they want to give chances to, especially now that they're bad. And you would think that that would create a little bit of a bidding war. But think about Tyler O'Neill. He has a player option or an opt-out type of thing at the end of this season. If he opts in, it's a 2-year, $33 million, contract extension. So about $15, $16 million a year for the 2 seasons after this one, which if you think Tyler O'Neill is bad, you're scared of. The other thing is, if he opts out, he just goes into free agency. So if you think Tyler O'Neill is good, you're concerned about giving up something for a half season of Tyler O'Neill. But the Padres are desperate. They are desperate for a corner outfielder with some pop, who can play a little bit of defense. And honestly, I'm not scared off by 2 years, $33 million, because it's not like the Padres have a lot of better options in left field right now. And it's not like they have a lot of better options in terms of adding pop to this lineup. I think it would be worth it. And look, what the Padres would probably hope for is that Tyler O'Neill comes in, he's awesome, and then he opts out and he goes into free agency. Great. If he comes in and he's terrible, you can buy him out or something. It's a desperation move. But you know what you have to give up to acquire a situation like that, a player like that? Nothing. You give up nothing. You give up like your 50th best prospect. It's nothing. The other one, and I kind of thought of these moves in tandem, was former Padre, who was traded away at one point, Brent Rooker, who has been a DH for the Oakland A's, Sacramento A's, future Las Vegas A's. Oh, that stadium's probably never going to get built for a couple years now. And last year, it looked like Brent Rooker was going to be traded because why would the A's hold on to a 29-year-old Brent Rooker? And they signed him to a 5-year, $60 million contract. Why? I have no idea. To show their fans that they were investing in the future, I guess. Brent Rooker is now 30. He's in the first year of that contract. That contract gets more expensive every year. And that is not a team that's trying to compete right now. So they have no interest in a guy who's 30 years old who costs this much money. You can get Brent Rooker for a song. And Brent Rooker, over the last 2 seasons combined, hit 69 home runs. That's nice. He's already got 19 already this season. That's a solid power bat. And the other thing about Brent Rooker, he can play some outfield, and he's not terrible at it. Now, what would it cost to get Brent Rooker? Again, nothing. But you're signed up for 4 more years at probably $55 million or something like that. Why would someone want that? Well, one, because you think Brent Rooker's good, which he probably is. I don't know if he's still going to be good 4 years from now when you're paying him $20-something million, but he's good. But I had a toss in here that the Padres could give them some middling prospect. Let's call it their 15th best prospect. And in addition to getting Brent Rooker, maybe they have a shot to get Shea Langoliers. Shea Langoliers is a catcher. I think he's pretty young. He's like 26, 25, around there. He's a good defensive catcher. Not a great one, but a good one. He's got good framing numbers. He's got a great arm to manage the base pass. Seems like he calls a good game. Seems pretty well respected. And this is gonna sound crazy, I know. As a catcher, he can hit a little bit. He's an average to above average hitter. And that to me, that could be enough. Like if the Padres, without giving up any major league talent, which who would want their major league talent right now? But I guess, in terms of Cease and Arise and whatever, you had these Suarez, you had these guys that we were talking about selling. So without selling anything and without really giving up any of your top prospects, probably any of your top 10 prospects, you have added 2 guys with pop who can play left field. In the case of Tyler O'Neill, he could also play a little center and right if you need him to. So he's kind of like a perfect 4th outfielder. So you've added Tyler O'Neill, you've added Brent Rooker, and you've added Shea Langoliers. So you have immediately upgraded your starting catcher position, your starting left field position, and Gavin Sheets can be a full-time DH. And now you have a 4th outfielder that can work in, who can also be a power bat off the bench, whether that's Rooker or O'Neill. It's probably O'Neill. That, to me, seems like the right path to take at the trade deadline. I don't know if AJ Preller agrees. Probably not. He's a smarter man than I am and more creative of a thinker. But for me, the safe path is to buy from the bargain bin. This would be buying from the bargain bin. I don't think it puts them in too bad of a situation going forward. Financially, it's not great. Like you're basically willing to spend money so you don't have to give up prospects. But that would be my idea of a pretty good trade deadline where you don't have to worry about did Preller sell the farm in his last year or two as GM potentially because he doesn't care about the future, and you don't have to worry about did we acquire this superstar who's going to need a contract in a couple years. No, at that point you have settled your weaknesses. You've turned your weaknesses into at least zeros, if not pluses. And I think that would be useful for the Padres. Enough Padres talk. Okay, I have a couple things I want to get into, and then I'll let you guys go because this has already been 30 minutes of me talking just by myself, and I'm sure that gets boring after a while. I want to play the clips from D. Smith. One of them is baseball. One of them is soccer. So since we've been talking about baseball, we can stick with that one. Let's see. Darren gave me a little bit of background on these. This first one is Sid Lowe of the Spanish Football Podcast. He's also, I think, a writer at The Guardian and at ESPN. And he went to a Yankee game, and he saw a shirt, and he wanted to talk about the shirt. So let's hear him talk about the shirt that he saw.
At Yankee Stadium, I am now, I don't know, I was about to call myself the proud owner. I don't know if this is really something I should be proud of, but I'm now the owner of a T-shirt that says, "Fuck Juan Soto." So I had to ask who Juan Soto was because I saw these T-shirts for sale. I thought that's a little bit harsh. Poor Juan, what's he done? Well, it turns out that he left the Yankees to go to the Mets. He's the Luis Figo of baseball. Now, apparently it's not that bad. Apparently he wasn't actually at the Yankees for very long. Apparently they always knew that it was likely that he was going to go. But anyway, it's a kind of a little bit of a football parallel for me. And it was really enjoyable going to Yankee Stadium. Fantastic stadium, a real sense of community, a sense of identity, a sense of occasion, a proper old stadium, and an absolutely phenomenal game. Do I admit this? Am I going to admit this? I'm going to admit this. We left in the 7th. And then the Yankees produced this incredible comeback and won it in an extra innings, 6-5. They were 5-0 down when we left. We thought it was done. And look, the real reason that we left was there were 3 of us there. One of them said, "I don't understand this. I don't know what's going on. Not particularly enjoying this. Can we go?" So never mind, fuck Juan Soto. Fuck Javi.
That's amazing. Darren added this context when Sid compares Juan Soto to Figo. That's Luis Figo, who left Barcelona for Madrid. Got an insane response from the Barcelona fans. Someone smuggled a pig head into the stadium and threw it at him while he was taking a corner kick. And then he put in parentheses, a little rougher than a T-shirt. I find this to be hilarious just from the simple stance that inside of Yankee Stadium, they sell T-shirts that say "fuck Juan Soto," and I mean, unless I'm crazy, Juan Soto was there for 2 years, and I get he signed with the Mets. I get it, but like that's the type of shirt that used to be sold outside the stadium. There'd be a guy standing on the corner, "Hey, buy this shirt. It says fuck Juan Soto," and you're like, "Oh my god, did you see that shirt? It says fuck Juan Soto." Inside the Yankee Stadium. This is what Darren and I have been talking for weeks about hater culture. And the teams get in on it, man. They're like, "Oh, what matters more than fielding a good baseball team and winning this game? Fucking hating Juan Soto." Ridiculous. All right. The other one was from the Second Captains podcast. This guy's name is Ken Early. I guess he was watching the Club World Cup from Ireland, and he had some takeaways on American weather and how it's going to affect not just the Club World Cup this year, but the World Cup coming up next year.
Just the insanity of this American weather, which every time the more you learn about it, the more you understand why Musk is so eager to colonize Mars. It's like, okay, well, it sort of makes sense from the point of view of America. They moved, remember, the World Cup in Qatar to winter.
Yeah.
Right. And now they're going to play this World Cup in this nonsense. This is actually, I'm not going to say it's worse than the Qatar summer, but it's clearly a lot worse than the Qatar winter. But you can't move to winter either, because what's it going to be, -20 in a blizzard at East Rutherford, New Jersey?
The frozen tundra.
Yeah,
We're going to get the NFL voice guy to do their World Cup games.
It doesn't work either. America is just a really unsuitable country for this sport, it turns out.
As we've been saying, a very unsuitable country for the World Cup. Should it be played in the winter or the summer? Springs are lovely. Fall, you could still get hit by hurricanes and whatnot, but spring is lovely. If they wanted to move it to a different season, yeah, America has weather. It's a big country. There's a lot of different types of weather, and the East Coast The Midwest and the South get really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. At least parts of the South, I think, get snow and ice in the winter. So yeah, it is funny to hear someone talk about the American weather of it all. But yeah, if it wasn't bad enough that the country is trying to chase out anyone who does not look like the founding fathers, the weather is going to try and kill the players who are participating in the World Cup. And I'm sure those takes are going to keep coming in, keep rolling in as we get closer and closer to next year's World Cup. But I found those funny. Darren Smith found those funny. He wanted to send them in and share them with you guys. Very, 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 very briefly, I promise. And then I'm going to get out of here. I linked to a story in the Front Row Seat newsletter this morning. It was from the San Diego Union Tribune. The title of it is Massive Tennis-Anchored Sports Complex in Play for Chula Vista Bayfront. Subheading, proposal also includes a water polo academy, hotels, a retail village with an IMAX theater, Pop Stroke, which I guess is a Tiger Woods thing, Blue Tech office buildings, and a public trail. A 50,000 seat stadium is envisioned for a second phase of development, which I saw this and I had to laugh because once again, we're right back to stadium talk in San Diego. And I made this as like something of a joke on Blue Sky. I was like, hey, the return of stadium talk in San Diego, except this time it's a Chula Vista Stadium instead. And my mentions went out of control. People replying to that, fighting with each other about freaking stadium talk, and it brought me right back to I guess that was 2018. Brought me right back to 2018, and then the Soccer City stuff and everything that led to Snapdragon Stadium, which then I got into it, was saying Snapdragon Stadium. Well, okay, all right, let's do this. This is a long article, and it has a lot to do with the fact that these people, these developers that want to develop this land in Chula Vista that used to be home of a power plant that was taken down. I think I saw that in here somewhere. At one point, this was viewed as a potential spot for the San Diego Chargers to build a stadium. If you remember, there was a Chula Vista kind of waterfront, bayfront location. That would be this one. But some of the people involved in the Soccer City thing are also involved in this development group, and that's what a lot of this article is about. But I want to read you guys a couple of paragraphs from it. Staff's current request for a short-term exclusive negotiating agreement with the development team suggests that the Pangea proposal, it's what they're calling it, has more legs than a similar plan that was in the works in 2023. DeVaris and Tucker Sadler previously teamed on a proposal for a soccer and hotel complex that seemingly fizzled because a former partner, Petra Development, did not appear to have ties to the MLS, as it had maintained. However, many of the original proposal elements remain intact, including a stadium. Pangea's stakeholders will pursue an MLS team, a USL Championship League team, or a Mexican Football Federation team as part of a second development phase, according to the proposal. Alternatively, the stadium could be used for concerts and festivals, the document states. I don't see in here where they got the... here we go. Project site referred to as the Otay District within the Chula Vista Bayfront Master Plan was the home of a since-demolished South Bay power plant. It was once considered a potential stadium location for the former San Diego Chargers. I don't see anything in here about 50,000 seats, but it was in the sub-headline, so we're going to go with that. That's way too big for an MLS stadium. Way too big. And as a matter of fact, every fan of SDFC should do themselves a favor at some point. And you can make it an SDFC road game if you want. Go see a game where the LA Galaxy play, or go see a game where LAFC play. It's not that long of a drive. The LAFC one is a little bit further, but neither one's that bad. And just feel the difference of watching soccer in one of those stadiums, which were built for soccer, built for MLS, as compared to the experience of watching in Snapdragon Stadium. And suddenly it will become very, very clear that Snapdragon Stadium is like a half-built stadium for American football. It's a terrible stadium for soccer. I think the Wave have figured this out. I think San Diego FC has figured this out. And I don't think it would take them a lot to convince SDFC to go and build a soccer-specific stadium somewhere, but I don't think a soccer-specific stadium is going to hold 50,000 people. I don't think with, Snapdragon Stadium holding 35,000 and Petco Park holding 40, 50,000, I don't think there's a need for another 50,000 seat stadium in San Diego. Call me crazy, but I would be totally down for, the MLS sized. Let's see, what is the LAFC one is Bank of something, but LAFC Stadium capacity, I bet it's like 18,000, 22,000 at BMO Stadium. I think it used to be Bank of California Stadium. Dignity Health Sports Park used to be StubHub Center. That's where the LA Galaxy play, holds 27,000. So they're talking about an MLS stadium that has twice as much seating capacity? No, that part's stupid. And that part can easily be adjusted and probably would, should this ever become any sort of reality whatsoever. But just letting everyone who's missed Stadium Talk know that Stadium Talk is back. Feel free to go on your Twitters and your Facebooks and your Blue Skies and scream at people about how you are an expert on where stadiums should go and what they should look like and how they should function, because we're all dying to hear your expertise. That is all that you guys are going to have to tolerate of me on this Friday. Padres play the Phillies at Petco Park tonight and over the weekend. San Diego FC travels to Chicago to play Chicago Fire FC tomorrow in what should be a good game and hopefully a bounce-back game after their loss against Houston. Hopefully it's a sharper game for SDFC. I kind of can't wait to see what the lineup looks like for that game. I'm interested to know if Chucky has worked his stamina up to the point of being a starter once again. Anyway, lots of good sports this weekend. I think it's going to be good weather this weekend. Get out, do some stuff, enjoy your weekend. We'll be back with more Section 1904 podcast, newsletter, some new things that are coming your way shortly. I might even add a video component to Section 1904 next week because I have some ideas that have been dancing around in my head that I want to try out. But until then, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for supporting us. We could not do this podcast, this media company, anything without you guys. This is a community-supported media company. We'd be nothing without you. So thank you so much for trusting us with your time, trusting us with a little bit of your investment. All right, everyone, enjoy your weekend. We'll chat on Monday.